Hello everyone, my name is Adam Lesser, and this is my case study for EDL 850. To get us started, we're going to look a little bit at the case background just to make sure that we're all on the same page. This case took place at Slattery Steno High School, which is a very affluent area. If you think of the stereotypical kind of best high school, that's really what we're looking at here. The parents are involved, have good backgrounds themselves. The students are very driven, trying to do their best. As part of this, we also have a couple of main characters or main roles that are taking place. We have Dr. Harvey Smith, who is the principal at this high school. Been there for 9 years and is well respected by the community. In fact, even the state itself tends to think that this high school is one of the best in the state, and they attribute part of that to Dr. Smith himself. Next character, Miss Robin Tate, is a second-year teacher. Does have their undergraduate and master's degree, so a little bit more educational background than some initial starting teachers, and also even had some doctorate work as well, but does not have a lot of teaching experience yet at this point. Prior to this incident, or prior to where we pick up the actual case itself, there had been some complaints about Miss Tate in her classroom, both from the standpoint of rigor, how much she's acting from her students, as well as just the discipline involved, how she's keeping track of students themselves and how they're acting within her class. The biggest part of that is seen from having lower grades. So there's been some complaints by parents that their students might not be able to reach valedictorian as a result of being in Miss Tate's class and not as a result of the abilities of their student. One of the things that also happened before this incident took place was that Dr. Smith had discussed some techniques with Miss Tate to try to help her out with that, to maybe build better classroom rapport, to help out with students and the stress levels involved. However, those were so far ineffective. The other thing, of course, is that parents and students both have been complaining about Miss Tate. She is not in a position where she is well liked by a lot of her students. At least that's the background that we tend to get from this. As far as what actually happened for the incident, this was on a 3-day weekend. Miss Tate came back from visiting her parents, checked her email, and noticed that she had an anonymous tip that a Facebook webpage was created that basically put her name under the rug and drew her through the mud and everything else. Essentially on this webpage there is information talking about how terrible of a teacher she was. There's threats on there, critical comments about her rigor, but the threat was the biggest thing at the end, saying, quote, "Who wants Miss Tate to disappear?" And very obviously for any teacher reading that, much less a new teacher reading that can be very disconcerting. She contacted her principal, Dr. Smith, immediately. He requested to see the page just to have a better idea of how to help her out, and advised her that it was just a prank. From then, Dr. Smith encourages Miss Tate to identify a possible student that she thinks might be the culprit, who might have been involved with this. He also prints a hard copy for his records and plans to address it in the morning on Monday. Miss Tate, at the time of this incident, does not call the police to report a threat, but instead decides to drive 3 hours back to her parents to spend the night so that she feels more safe before driving 3 hours back to work Monday morning. So from there, there's a few things that would have been helpful to know from the beginning of this case study. First and foremost, did Dr. Smith or Miss Tate or did anybody notify the police of a perceived threat? If this is actually a case where Miss Tate is going to be driving 6 hours for her own safety, that's perceived as enough of a threat that I would imagine that police should be involved. Furthermore, is there any way to figure out who sent the anonymous email? Was it sent through a school address that could be traced, or was it sent from some brand new account that was just created to be able to let Miss Tate know about this? Another thing that would be, of course, helpful to know, in addition to who created the web page itself, but how many individuals were involved? Were these all students? Could have been based off of the language of the page. Could have been parents who were frustrated with Miss Tate as well, that don't want their kid to be going through her class and are trying to vent those frustrations. The other thing that I wish was included is if Miss Tate or Dr. Smith, if either one of them reported the website to Facebook. There is a report function on there that could be used to take down that web page so it's not an issue in the future, even though, of course, some damage has already been done. A couple other things that would be important to know: does Dr. Smith intend on contacting a school lawyer concerning the matter? And does IT actually have any way of trying to trace this and figuring it out? Can they look within the school devices to see how many people are on Facebook if they went to that specific page, or even if there's an email associated with the creation of that page itself? Okay, from there, looking at the actual problem itself, there's really a lot of things that are contributing to this. It's much more complex than just a short idea. First and foremost, the biggest issue at hand is the attacks against Miss Tate. Of course, that could be either a student individually, a group of students, it could be a parent individually, a group of parents, or a mix of all of the above. But that is honestly the biggest problem that I see from this case, that there is an effective threat on Miss Tate, and this public kind of crying out of how much she is not appreciated. At the time of the report, I would also think that a big problem is that this page is still out there, that there is no plans for taking it down. That kind of goes with the reporting it to Facebook, but there's nothing in place to limit access to that in the time between when she told Dr. Smith about the issue and when they'll show up on Monday for work. Another thing that I believe could have been more helpful or is a problem here is that Dr. Smith's actions leave some room for improvement. He did not adequately help Miss Tate improve upon her teaching styles beforehand. That's no justification for whoever created the website, but it would have helped alleviate the problem as well. I've already mentioned this, but a big problem is that she's driving 6 hours just to feel safe. That is not reasonable for anybody to have to drive 6 hours just to feel safe and then still report for work the next morning. Personally, when I hear that she's driving back to her parents, I am kind of shocked that she's going to be showing up to work on Monday if this is the sort of environment that's causing her issues and have her feel that anxiety that she needs to leave town as a result. Another big problem that I felt was kind of odd is that Ms. Tate was actually being encouraged to try to accuse a student, based nothing off of anything that's concrete evidence, but just based off of how a student might have been acting in class. And I understand the standpoint of trying to narrow down the search and get an idea of who to possibly talk to, but I also feel like that's a step a little bit too far of thinking of kind of a witch hunt on who this might be. The last thing that I feel like needs to be addressed is, does Ms. Tate feel that she wants to file charges? I mean, for what we're seeing described on this case study, it certainly fits within malicious acts, and she could certainly press charges as a result. As far as how we can start to address some of this, there's a few things I'll be looking at. I'm going to include the strategies while talking about these different plans for the action. First and foremost, I do believe that Ms. Tate does need to decide if it will be contacting law enforcement or not. And this should be done at the time of the incident and not something where you're waiting until you determine who is guilty and then deciding from there on whether or not you like them. And that's one of the big things to be careful about this. If they do actually contact law enforcement, it should be done without accusing any individuals, just getting a report made describing what's been going on here. If they choose not to contact the police, then they shouldn't change their mind later on if it turns out to be a kid that she doesn't like. That should not matter on whether or not she files charges here. The very last thing is that even if she chooses not to report this to police, she does need to have some sort of report on file. I understand that Dr. Smith printed out the webpage, and that's certainly helpful, but it would be worth the time for her to sit down and actually record in writing with the date what she's feeling at this time and what sort of things that's going through her mind, just so we have a better record of that. It doesn't seem as made up later on down the road. Other things that could be done here, Dr. Smith himself has a few things that he should be doing between the time of hearing about this incident and Monday morning school. One of the first things is just making sure that this doesn't go out of control. There's a few things that can tie into that. Number one, Ms. Tate should be reminded not to accuse any individuals during the school day on Monday or to be sharing this with other people, as well as any students that Dr. Smith is going to be working with. Kind of the same idea, not to accuse other people unless they know what's going on, but also not to just continue to spread this web page or the ideas that are out there. I also do believe that it'd be appropriate for Dr. Smith to send out an email to staff, just notifying them about what's going on. They don't need to know the details about everything, but they should have an idea of just that there is something going on, to have their ears to the ground while they're in supervision, just in case they overhear anything. A couple other things for action here. I would expect IT to be involved. Part of this does fall under the Children's Internet Protection Act, because really this is the case of cyberbullying. If it's being acted on towards a teacher, I would imagine that similar things are probably being done towards other students, or at least it's certainly not without the realm of feasibility for that. Furthermore, if this was something that was created while using a school-issued device, it might be possible to search and determine who created it or who has been contributing to that. Lastly, it would be probably worth thinking through potentially blocking Facebook or other related sources, at least in the immediate future, just to keep this from spreading more. And of course, that last thing on there, an individual does need to report the page to Facebook so that it can be taken down, so it's not still out there and it's not still creating more of an issue than it already has. Okay. As far as how my plan is going to promote student success, there's a few things that could be incorporated within this that would help students have better success in the future. One of the first things is just helping them deal with the stress of school. This is something that students across the nation are dealing with, and it certainly seems to be a big problem here as well. One of the big factors of that is our counselors working towards that regard. When I was growing up in high school, my counselor was just for scheduling classes and making sure I got into a college that I wanted to. I never talked with them about any personal matters, and that seemed kind of weird the one time that they actually called me in to talk about it. Obviously, I believe that's changed quite a deal since when I was in high school, but are they effectively being utilized in this case? And do students understand what it is like to have a balanced and healthy lifestyle? The case study background let us know that the parents are professionals, there's doctors, there's lawyers, and all that sort of extent. A lot of times those professions, though, don't always have the most time for family or the most time to build a healthy lifestyle. So it's very possible that these students are struggling with that. And what's a balance between your work life and your and your personal life, and having fun while also making sure that you're getting stuff done. The next big topic for promoting student success would be just having better guidance understanding cyberbullying, the implications, regardless of who it's targeting. I know this high school probably does have some form of bullying, some sort of setup for that and how they address it, but is there any curriculum for it, especially for cyberbullying, or is there any curriculum on digital literacy or citizenship that could be implemented that's more effective than what's going on currently, because obviously what's happening currently is not working for them. And, you know, I know this isn't going to just eliminate bullying overnight, but the whole idea is to just help it, help students become more aware of it, and help them have a better understanding of what they can do to prevent that in the future. A couple other things to help promote student success. Another thing would be to just, the whole idea is to help students feel safe at school, and that does go back to bullying both in person and online, but a lot of it is going to be just having a safe environment where they feel confident that they can speak up and say something. Very obviously, it's good to have the student that sent the anonymous email to Ms. Tate, at least I'm assuming because the student, it could be a parent or somebody else as well, but you want to have the environment of the school be where students are actually speaking up towards the people who are bullying, and how they're actually taking an active role in their own safety to help ensure the success of everyone around there. Another thing is just helping teachers themselves grow more professionally. Very obviously, Dr. Smith, he attempted to share some ideas with Ms. Tate on how she can improve instruction and kind of the environment within her classroom, but it also was not effective. So what could they be doing differently to help just ensure that progress is being made and that we're not just being stagnant with our teaching in that classroom? With this plan in place, there are a few lingering questions that I would still want to see addressed, or kind of would help me have a better understanding of how to set up a proper plan for what's going on here. First and foremost, does the school or does the district itself have any guidelines for handling threats like this? Within this class, we did some research on zero tolerance and how that's been expanded to many more things than just for having a firearm in your possession while you're at school. In a lot of cases, this sort of example or something like this might fit under a zero tolerance policy. So it'd be very helpful to know if that was in place in the school, or if they have any other sort of guidelines for if threats are being made towards another student or a teacher and how that's going to be handled. Another thing that would be very helpful as we kind of look towards the future is how will Ms. Tate actually improve upon her instruction in the future. Very obviously, she's going to be in a bit of emotional distress from this event, and it's going to be difficult to be trying to make those positive changes, even more so than it was before. So what's going to be happening? How is Dr. Smith or any other supportive, helpful administration going to be able to have our instruction be improved? Another lingering question is going to be, what's Dr. Smith going to do in order to establish a better environment for his school? Yes, it's a prestigious school. Yes, a lot of other schools probably look up to it in the state, but clearly they still have their own fair share of issues. So what can he be doing to try to help out the environment, or just help students feel more at ease and less stressed while they are there? And then lastly, what are parents' reactions going to be like? How are they going to be interacting with this? Are they going to be on the side of the school and trying to take down this site, or are they just going to jump on the bandwagon and start complaining themselves and call for Ms. Tate to be fired? There's a lot of gray area that's not really addressed here on how the parents are going to be working within this. I would hope that they would sit there and say that the students' actions were not justified and that they do need to be addressed accordingly, but it's always hard to say how that would work out, especially when there were so many pre-existing complaints about Ms. Tate. As far as defending my choices, I set stuff up. There's a few things that we'll go through. The first one is just ensuring integrity within the plan. One of the first things that my plan did was just to make sure not to involve a witch hunt to try to find an individual and to, or even just to name random people and try to punish them as fast as possible. Another thing that my plan does is that it does attempt to serve all students as best as possible, not even just those who are involved with this website. One of the big things is just establishing that better sense of environment or rapport within the classroom or within the school, and making sure that students feel safe and respected. And that's kind of tying into the last thing as well, just having those positive relationships is going to be a very important thing for students while they're in high school. And it helps them just kind of actually succeed and build the skills that they need to be able to move on with wherever else they're going later in life. Another thing that my plan faces that is very fair to people, it can be enacted without favoritism. It does not absolve anybody of any fault. Yes, Ms. Tate was the one who was targeted from this website, but she is not immune to any improvement herself. She certainly has room for improvement in her classroom and how she's interacting with people. Same thing for Dr. Smith. He has room for improvement as well. My plan also does not ignore possible influence by other factors outside of school. I understand that parental life choices can be a big factor for this, and how parents might be stressed from the case or from working at a hospital or whatever it might be, and how that could tie into student stress. So it certainly tries to incorporate that all to have a better understanding of where everybody's at to make a better plan for the future. And again, my plan is working just to try to be beneficial to all students, not just those who are not involved with the problem, but also those who have some more of the input themselves. The last part of this for defending my choices is with the ethics itself. Again, one of the big things is that it's not wrongfully accusing any individuals or any group of peoples. That's a big part of this, is that we're not just throwing around accusations and trying to discipline people as a result. Another big part of this is that my plan does fit within the Child Internet Protection Act. Monitoring students while they're using school software is something that should be done regardless, and this is something that can help support them and help them ensure that cyberbullying is kept to a minimum as well. The other thing that my plan does would be just to work to ensure that all students are feeling safe within their learning environment. And that's on all three of these things, but it's that big of an issue and applies to that many different aspects of this plan, that these students need to feel like they're in a place where they can learn. And that's a legal right for them, that they feel safe while they're learning, while they're in school. Okay. That is it for me, though. Thank you for watching, and I hope you all have a great day.